Well, my personal interest, Mark, is probably as a result of being involved in groundwater use over the last 30 years in the management of groundwater, and seeing our Condamine alluvium in serious decline, and our allocations are going to be cut by 60% to make it sustainable. And the coal seam gas industry came onto the scene. 2 years ago, the Premier was announcing these multi-billion-dollar projects and talking about massive amounts of water being extracted from the underground, and it was treated as a waste product, and that really sort of rang alarm bells, because to anybody that lives in the bush, water is never a waste product, and there just seemed to be no management of the water. And we're also hearing horror stories about land access issues and that. So I just couldn't sit back and do nothing, so we've worked through a whole process and eventually formed Basin Sustainability Alliance to take these issues to government and to the coal seam gas companies.
Okay, can you maybe tell us a bit about that Basin Sustainability Alliance, and what sort of procedures you're following, how you think the whole scenario is changing as people become more used to it as government regulation changes and all the rest?
Yeah, Basin Sustainability Alliance formed a couple of years ago, and it was as a result of a meeting in Dalby, a landholder, concerned landholder meeting. We had a number of speakers, from the local solicitor to landholders that had gas industry on their property, and I raised a lot of the water issues, and there was a lot of small groups out there who had a lot of concerns, but there was nobody really sort of linking that energy together and then taking it to government. And it was felt that we should try and have a body that would actually take it forward and lobby government and have avenues to lobby the companies about some of the practices. And yeah, Basin Sustainability was formed, and I probably opened my mouth too many times and ended up being chair of that organisation. And from the outset, Basin Sustainability Alliance is about sustainability. So it was looking at identifying the real issues that were out there, the groundwater, the social and the economic impacts, the compensation impacts, and trying to get it work to a goal where we can all live together and everybody can have a sustainable living, and the companies can in where it's suitable, come in, do the job, and then leave our environment, agriculture in a good state, so we can carry on farming for the next generations. Where it's scientifically proven feasible that it's not going to leave a long-term environmental impact, I mean, I can support the coal seam gas industry. And in the sustainability, we've got to bring our communities in, because we can't survive without a sustainable community. We rely on that obviously for a lot of the inputs into our businesses, in the both inputs and the labour that's available in town. So we want to have a sustainable community, and we don't want to see this big explosion of activity, then it just dies away to nothing over 20 or 30 years.
Boom bust.
Boom bust. We don't want a boom bust cycle. So we've been looking at the whole thing, and I guess with farmers, we know we've got a market for 1,000 years, so we're really trying to look after it, where the gas industry has got a 20 or 30 year lifespan and they're gone.
Yeah.
Well, we don't view it like that, and most farmers are quite environmentalists at heart, and we want to leave the farm in a better state than we found it.
Okay.
And we certainly can't afford to have an industry come in and damage it, so there is no future for us.
Okay, so just in terms of those risks and the science, I mean, is there any one area that you'd identify as being one where we don't have enough data, we don't have enough knowledge, and what might be done about that?
The biggest area of concern to me is the understanding of the groundwater impacts. We are pulling out hundreds of thousands of megalitres of water out of the coal walloon measures. We don't know for certain the connectivity between the walloons and other aquifers that are being used for agriculture, for stock and domestic supply and town water supplies.
Yep.
The Condamine is at the greatest risk because it's actually eroded into the coal walloon measures, and the separation there is very small. What we need to know is we want to have confidence that science can actually provide the answers before we see a major impact. We don't want to have to try and fix up a mess, because it's very, very hard. So we want to have a good understanding of potential impacts before they happen. Yeah, I mean, they are rushing ahead. They've got deadlines to make, but they are also investing a lot of money in getting an understanding of the groundwater, and they're probably not communicating that well enough. We have had a number of forums, and as I said earlier, I have seen the origin core, which is a 1,500 metre core from the surface down to the precipice sandstones, and just looking at it and walking along it, you get a much better understanding of what's an aquitard, what's an aquifer, possible sites for re-injection. So, and then you see the coal walloons measures as well, and the coal seams. So there's a lot of information being gathered. I'm not sure that it's being coordinated well enough,
Okay.
and then delivered to the public to give them some confidence. And the Queensland Water Commission is actually going through that process to identify likely impacts on other aquifers.
Yep.
But that report's pretty slow coming out. I thought it was going to be out in January, or have a chance to have a look at it, by now. But it's been held up, which is obviously disappointing, because landholders really relying on that report to get a good understanding of the likely impacts. And it will give us a basis. We can, maybe employ scientists to go through it and see if there's any areas of that it's been overlooked or whatever. So you've got something to work with to channel any new science to give us more confidence.
Do you think the federal government's recently established an independent commission into the science related to coal seam gas? Do you think that's got a big role in that process that you're outlining?
Yeah, I think it's got a really big role. I mean, it's sort of a little bit independent being from the federal side of things, and there are some very good expertise in the scientists, the members in that interim committee. I certainly highlighted the groundwater impacts as really one that I think they need to get out there and investigate.
So you actually personally had a bit of a chat to the members of that committee?
Yes, yeah. I did. I represented the community.
Okay.
And did a presentation to them Monday a fortnight ago.
Right.
And yeah, really targeted the lack of understanding of the groundwater and fear of contamination and long-term water loss and then and the possibility of maybe even putting this water aside that they bring up for life after coal seam gas, as building a water bank.
Yep.
Rather than using it now or disposing of it, evaporating it away or sending it down a river, let's consider putting it back in the ground into a more pure water aquifer.
Okay.
And having it available for industries after coal seam gas, because otherwise all our towns are expanding in the boom cycle. What have we got for the after the boom, when almost the bust cycle? We don't want to bust.
No.
So
you don't want one of those sort of northern Queensland mining towns that used to exist 100 years ago,
That's
and
right.
now it's a ghost town.
That's a big fear for the community. Is it all ramps up, costs increase, and then suddenly it all dwindles down. You've got back to nearly ghost towns, and if we've impacted our food production ability or our groundwater, we will have ghost towns, and we certainly can't allow that to happen. And,
for sure.
And if we can encourage the companies to build this future fund, so in 30 years' time, we might want to put a power station at Roma or a solar farm, solar panel farm at Chinchilla. The water's in the ground for it. It doesn't have to cut allocations from agriculture. So, is that a feasible option? I mean, to me, it seems like a logical step, but I would like to know through science that it's actually achievable.
And what steps can you take as a landowner, as a farmer, to negotiate with that company or those companies that have some rights on the gas under the ground? Yeah,
well, the company's certainly got the right to come onto the property, but we have got the legislation, the land access legislation, which gives a good guide. It's really then up to me to identify all the likely impacts. The company's got to compensate for impacts, and so I'll have to identify all the key impacts that could happen to my property and value them. And I guess it would be a fairly hard negotiation process, but at the end of the day, if they're legitimate concerns, they should be compensated for. I mean, I haven't entered into this process yet, but I understand that for some people it works well and other people it doesn't work well. But we will certainly be doing our very best to ensure that we get compensated for all the impacts. And
can you really quantify something like impact on lifestyle? I mean, obviously you can put a dollar figure on that, but how? Your lifestyle has changed.
Yes, it certainly has. Hopefully we can keep them away from our residences, so they're not in our view all the time. So they're not up your driveway, they're not near your house. It is going to be hard to compensate for that, and I don't know quite how you calculate it and how you do it. For some people it would be a very important part of the compensation, for others it may not be quite so important, but it is one of those areas that that's the passion that comes out. This is my home, this is my castle. How dare you come on here and drive all over my property? So hopefully through relationship building, the companies will actually understand that. They're prepared to work with people, they treat them with respect, they are upfront with their impacts, so they don't try and hide things that might happen in the future. They need to build that relationship, and once you're happy with things, they go smoothly. But if they annoy you from the start, there's just going to be this angry sort of relationship for a long period of time, and they're never going to work together, and the landholder's always going to be upset, and the companies are going to struggle to do a lot of what they want to do.